What is up, fish heads? Welcome back to Waterbox Live. Here coming to you guys from Refugeium, Orlando 2025. We got our good friend Joe with us here. And we're talking all about pro tips for a thriving tank. So we're just going to go through all the different things that you need to know. And Joe's one of the best guys to talk to you about that because of your length of experience. How long have you been in the hobby?
Oh, actually, I forgot. I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
Your whole life.
So I remember having a bottle and having a fish tank. No, I started working in fish stores when I was 13, actually, every day after school.
Oh, wow.
Riding my bike. Actually, 12, I was buying fish, and then the person there offered me a job. So my parents said yes. I would ride there and made $3 an hour cleaning fish tanks for this person, and I never stopped. So 50 years old, so whatever that math is.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's long, 37 years. Never stopped.
You've done a little bit of everything. You've had aquarium store, you have your online, you've maintenance, you have businesses. So you have been in like every aspect of the hobby and the industry. So you have quite the history and definitely the knowledge and expertise. We thought it would be a great topic to pick your brain and give all these people some good advice.
Yeah, from servicing aquariums, that led into buying products and then eventually kind of joining companies that had products and then selling my own. And it's just been diversification and trying to keep your name good and this and that. And before you know it, this is 37 years of evolving in the space that I still love. I'm very passionate about aquariums.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I do want to mention to the viewers real quick, if you guys have questions, post them below. And if we have time, we'll try to get to a few of those towards the end. So.
Cool. Don't forget, we have Inspire going on, of course. So for this stream here, you have the first 30 minutes to enter in on waterboxaquariums.com for two $1,000 Waterbox gift cards that are given away. And the grand prize giveaway is still open. So if you haven't entered in for that, and that's a $2,000 Waterbox gift card that we are going to announce the winner of on Wednesday. And that one's open until the end of today. But we also have sales on aquariums, equipment, all of that good stuff. So do check out waterboxaquariums.com for all the information on giveaways and sales.
Cool.
So get your entries in. You have 27 minutes for the giveaway on this stream.
Perfect. So Joe, tell us a little bit about what some of the things you think like the most common like beginner mistakes that people make when getting into the saltwater aquarium.
I think rushing to buy gear, believing that the first piece of advice you hear is true. You know, if you do really any research or any questions online now, you see the questions, the answers that people give, they're all over. So really you got to kind of take a step back, read it all, take it all in, think about it, and then find a trusted source like Waterbox to get your information from. And then pick an avenue, pick a style of aquarium, and try not to get distracted by, well, I want to do SPS, but I really only want fish only, but I don't really want rock, and I do want sand. And you just get yourself all confused. Like, look at a bunch of aquariums, see what inspires you. That's the kind of the theme here. And whatever speaks to you the most, pick the right equipment and the right advice that best suits that. So really just honing in on one lane of advice while still being open-minded, but pick a path and stay on it.
Right.
Because there's different theories, and you can get yourself really confused. Know what you want to do before you
start getting into it and stuff like that. When people set up an aquarium, I feel like there's a lot of beginner mistakes that have to do with cycling and stocking. What are some of those common ones that you see and like ways to avoid those starting your aquarium problems?
I think buying the wrong animals too soon, or even ultimately, we go to a fish store and you're just blown away. I made these mistakes when I was young, and I worked in a fish store, and you see this copper band butterfly, or there's this butterfly fish that only eats coral polyps, and like, this is why I set up a tank. And you start doing these mental gymnastics to justify this purchase, but really this is not the right animal for you. And it's kind of cruel to buy fish that really don't have a high survivability rate, even in a seasoned aquarist's aquarium, no less a beginner's aquarium. So be disciplined. Don't buy on, your kid yanking on your leg to buy those fish. Do some research and figure out what animals, what fish species would do well in a beginner aquarium, and then don't rush it. Take it slow.
Slow in the beginning, especially if you're starting to think that you got the cycle and like starting to add fish. So you can feel like people overstock too quickly or don't truly cycle an aquarium, and that just leads to even making the hardiest fish that they can die or have a lot of issues, and then you've kind of given up on it and you've had so much problems in the beginning. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Understanding the cycle, understanding what animals you can add when. Fish and inverts are very susceptible to ammonia and nitrite spikes. Corals can actually handle it. You can set up corals in a new tank. In fact, people dose ammonia now. This is something that if you dose too much, your fish won't like it. But understanding the cycle and how it impacts. I don't know if we can hear with all this noise.
Actually, the microphones blur out some of this.
I think they can pick us up. You got them? Yeah, it is loud though.
What's a mistake you think that pretty much every new hobbyist makes? The most common one you would see.
Overspending.
That was not expecting that
When
one.
the addiction hits hard.
That one hits really hard. Probably overcrowding or overcrowding too soon. Wanting that one more fish, one more coral, one more animal. And coming from a professional service background where we're constantly balancing the needs of the aquarium with the expectations of the customer is often very challenging, especially when budget is not a factor.
Right.
We have these checkbook reefers. They're like, I'm used to getting anything I want. The limiting factor with a lot of us is our checkbook, but not with some people. So they're like, well, I want 2 of these, 4 of these, 3 of these, and I can't sell you that. In fact, if we have time, I have a really awesome story when during the season finale of when Sopranos was happening. All of a sudden, I turn around at my store and James Gandolfini walks in, and I was like, I'm in New York, I'm an Italian, American, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's bigger than anything. And he's like, yeah, how you doing? I want to buy some fish. I'm like, oh, great. I'm like, well, what kind of fish do you want? He goes, I want one of these, one of these. I mean, what do you have at home? He's like, well, I have a 75-gallon saltwater tank, but I don't know what kind of fish I have. I was like, well, I can't really sell you fish if you don't know what you have. And he's like, well, what do you mean? He goes, you're not going to sell me fish? I was like, well, can you find out what kind of fish? So he called his service provider. Guy didn't pick up. He's like, so what do we do? I said, well, do you have one of these? He goes, I think I might have something similar. I said, if I sell you a yellow tang and you've got a purple tang, it's going to be World War III. If you've got a Lutescens wrasse and I sell you a Lunari wrasse, it's going to be World War III. He's like, so you're really not going to take my money? I was like, Jim, I would love to. I said, but it's not the right thing to do. And so he walked out. And then he called me later that day. He's like, I got 2 things for you. I got my fish list, and I fired my guy. I want you to service my aquarium. And that kicked off a really good relationship with Jim.
That's cool.
He saw that I did the right thing. But I think the point and the moral is you have to know what you have, and you can't be adding fish and animals that are going to be what we call conspecific. So they occupy the same niche in the environment, so they have a natural aggression. Especially in a smaller aquarium.
It's nice because a lot of places, and it's such a good story just for that fact of you want to be able to go somewhere that you trust that they'll tell you no because it's not the right fish or the right time, or not just be like, yeah, I'll sell you anything just because you're going to pay me money, but it really is the well-being of what's going into your aquarium.
Absolutely.
And make sure that if you have a store or someone that they're like that you can trust them. Because it's going to save you so much heartache.
Yes, absolutely. And it's about building that and money. Yep.
Alrighty. Tell us about what your process is for when you're choosing gear for the aquarium, whether it's lighting or flow or...
Right, so to put together a package of complementing equipment. Back in the day, we didn't have these kits like Waterbox has now, where everything is kind of matched. The pump design, the size of the heater, the lighting, the wattage. You can literally buy a complete setup that looks good with the stand, with everything. When we were reefing years ago, it was more of a buffet. You had to pick different brands and stick it all together and try to get it to work. So I think just going with that package route and that's the best way. Not going with lights that are too powerful for an aquarium that then might need a chiller or something. So get the ratings, the flow ratings, the gallons, the wattage, everything, and make it match. Stick within that framework.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that yesterday on how things have changed so much. I mean, even 20 years ago, you go to set up an aquarium, and it's like, you buy the aquarium, and if you're lucky, you can find a stand for it.
Right.
And then you got to plumb it.
Yeah.
And it's like you're going to the hardware store 10 times to, it's just everything's gotten so much more simplified.
I remember building my own light boxes out of wood and running aluminum foil in it, going to Home Depot and buying the power supplies and putting in the white ink caps and buying the bulbs.
Oh yeah, putting together old T5 sets and
then making
like
wet dry filters and siliconing egg crate to make the levels.
I always said my time in this because back when I started, there was nothing that was pre-done for you. But like, I'm a plumber, I'm an electrician,
you become a jack of all trades.
Like you had to do everything yourself and construct it. So you ended up getting a lot of skills in all those different areas. But the amount of people that probably wired their own lighting in dangerous ways, you don't have to worry about that anymore.
But sticking to that package just makes total sense. You go on a website and it's tempting to want to buy this filter or this light or something, but you can actually buy something that's been tuned for all the efficiency ratings to work as a set package. And I mean, I would have had so much fun 15, 20 years ago with setup like what you guys have. And it looks good too.
What would be your top 3 equipment that you think is like most important and most vital you would invest your most into for a successful reef aquarium?
For a successful reef aquarium, you really, as an avid diver myself, it's easy to get disconnected from the power and awe of a natural reef. So I encourage anyone who's going to get a reef aquarium, if you haven't been to a reef, and I get it, it's expensive to travel there, but it would be really good if you can see the reef firsthand, because then it kind of closes that disconnect. So to marry that to what you asked, getting very powerful lights, getting a lot of flow in the aquarium, and then getting good testing equipment to make sure you're maintaining a very stable environment. Because coral reefs are dubbed to be the most stable environment on Earth. So these animals haven't evolved mechanisms to deal with change. So it's our job to maintain a very stable environment through regular testing, good equipment that's not going to malfunction. So lighting is key because most of these animals are highly photosynthetic. And then strong flow, whether that's a very good return pump or auxiliary flow in the tank as well.
Nice. Lights, flow, testing.
And then good testing equipment, yes.
It's good 3. That's the top 3.
Back on the topic of how easy it is to set up aquariums these days, these newer hobbyists don't know how easy they have it. And just like from how easy it is, like even with a water box, like it's all there. The plumbing's already put together, and it's
that's
everything.
A huge one. Yes.
Yeah, it's like everything's plug and play.
Yes. Now, and I've set up a bunch of water boxes. I have them in my house, and it's so easy. Let me tell you, I'm going to look in the camera. When you know that gasket and that unit and those fittings all go together, they've all been pre-cut, they're glued. Game changer. Game changer. Yes.
What's something for people, like I'm talking about maintenance of it? So they got it up and running, they've gotten kind of stuff going into it. Like what's a key maintenance routine? Since you've had professional maintenance companies and all, like what is your solid, this is what you should be doing regularly, and these are kind of your key things for maintaining your aquarium?
I think it kind of is similar to maybe flying a plane, which I've never done. There's a lot of work to get the plane up. But once it's up and it's cruising, it's not a lot of work to just keep it cruising, and you can start to do this. So your maintenance plan changes with the tank's lifespan. But getting an aquarium or the theme or the biotope that best matches your free time or your willingness to put time in. Like if you want a mono-style planted tank, you're going to be in there a lot trimming plants to keep that. And as soon as you get too busy in life and you don't have 3-4 weeks to do water changes and get in there and snip, it's going to turn into a different animal. So I think getting an aquarium that matches your life commitments is very important, and then coming up with a maintenance routine that is very committed, very disciplined, and oftentimes feels like it's not needed, but that's the key, is to be proactive. So you want like a daily maintenance plan, a weekly, and then maybe a monthly. And of course there's some wiggle room. You don't have to do it on the calendar day of the month. The tank doesn't explode if you don't do the water change on the 30th day. But my friend coined this term LARS, lazy ass reefer syndrome. And it's very applicable to this. So it's like, the tank looks good after 4 weeks, I'll push it to 5. Still looks the same, I'll push it to 6. The power head's kind of wiggling a little bit, not really flowing, corals seem to be okay, I'll push it to 7 weeks. And all of a sudden, these problems start to compound, and then it kind of nosedives off a cliff. So, set up those maintenance plans, and you guys have a lot of information on picking a plan to match your particular aquarium, and a lot of that is geared towards what's in your aquarium. Is it an SBS? Is it a LPS system? Is it a fish only?
Yeah, very a lot. Are you a big fan of automation? on aquariums? Letting everything do it for you?
Yes and no. As a hobby, you want to be intimate. Like if you're a gardener, which this is kind of like, you don't want something to garden for you. The joy is getting your hands dirty, getting in the garden, pulling some weeds, and then taking a step back and, oh my God, 3 hours went by and I wasn't stressed and look at what I did.
Yeah.
So that's the zone I like to get in when I'm servicing aquariums. So automation has a tendency to pull that intimacy away from us. So I like to use automation kind of as a redundant backup.
Okay.
And it's like Jake Adams used to say, I am the controller. You know, don't let things control you. But everyone is different. Some people really enjoy maintaining their aquarium through their phone app. But I do like the redundancy that a lot of these apps and a lot of these programs offer, you know, giving you an alert if your temperature is out of whack or there's water on the floor.
Yeah.
So in that sense, absolutely.
So more for the proactive, prevent disasters kind of part of it,
but
not
actually
let it do everything for you.
Dosing stuff, making changes, dialing heaters up, down. I'm still a little bit old school, so I do like hands-on, because that's how I can interact with the aquarium and best prevent problems.
We're the same way. I mean, all of our aquariums we set up in the studio, like we don't have a ton of automation. It's hands-on, but that's how I've done it for 20 plus years.
Right.
You know, and being able to like look at your aquarium every day and being forced to know you're gonna see stuff before things happen badly. Because when you get to know your aquarium, you can look at it and you're like, something's not right. And you can tell that in 1 or 2 days versus waiting for automation or controllers to tell you a week later when it's getting too far. So. And
a lot of the automation sometimes, you know, it can fail. You know, you realize you should have had a sensor for this, or something was in the wrong position, or, you know, before you know it, your alkalinity went out of whack and you didn't look at your tank for 3 days because you knew it was on autopilot with your alk controller and doser, but one of those things malfunctioned, or there was a firmware update. There's a million reasons why people look back and like, I relied too heavily on this. So not to scare people about automation, but use it as a tool. But the best tool in your toolbox is your brain, right? So don't put that one in the toolbox and replace it with something else.
Don't check out from your aquarium.
I like,
thank you.
I like what you said though about the gardener thing, because it is true. Like, you have to get joy out of actually getting your hands dirty and tinkering with the aquarium and just actually working on it, not just it being in the background. You know, I have a tank over there. You know,
and then not over stressing on it. You know, I oftentimes when I'm a little OCD about the aquarium, it's hard for me to enjoy when there's little algae here, or I see, you know, maybe a little bryopsis sprouting on one rock, and just my focus goes to that. But the times that I enjoy the aquarium the most is when I'm not being OCD, I'm a little bit more preoccupied in my life, and I can walk by the aquarium and say, man, that looks good. And then I don't really see that one little corner, because the aquariums are never perfect. There's always something there's always something to do. In fact, that should be a talk topic. There's always something to do. Right? There's always a coral that's like, a fish that's breathing a little heavy. There's a little spot of cyano that it's just been nuisance. So, and that's okay. That's just par for the course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not going to have perfection.
No.
It's an ecosystem in a glass box.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of variables and stuff like that. What about, like, you know, we've been doing it for so long, we've been in it for a long time, you know, long-term hobbyists, like, how do you think preventing would care, like, burnout or aquarium fatigue, where you're just like kind of getting over it, or like don't want to do the maintenance? Like, do you experienced that, or help people through that?
I think it's different for a lot of people. It comes back to what does the aquarium bring for you, and you know, as a service professional, it's oftentimes different than talking to a hobbyist. We have a lot of clients that want the aquarium as just a piece of furniture or decoration in their home, so it serves a different point, or maybe just a learning tool. But like for me personally, to connect with a lot of people that have it as a hobby and as a source of enjoyment, I like to change it up. You know, after 3, 4, 5 years, go with a different theme. It's okay to sell your animals, to maybe change it up, go with a different biotope. I find it all of a sudden I'm inspired again. You know, take the rocks out, just dismantle it, try something new. Nothing has to be permanent. You've already achieved the levels of success with this. You've gotten a lot of enjoyment. Now you're basically in cruise control. It's kind of nice to land a plane and then go to another city. You know, and then you get new things, new animals. Of course, we don't throw the animals away. We trade them, or we trade them in. And we often have people bring their animals to us, and we give them good credit for it, because those are sometimes the best animals. They're hardy, they're quarantined.
So kind of change it up, get that excitement back if you're feeling a little bit
Go to a bigger tank. You know, all these things are budget oriented a lot, but you know, it's a hobby. You got to enjoy it. Don't just cruise along.
Keith, you got any questions?
Yeah, we got several questions. We got a bunch of people. I was wondering if you guys asked where are you guys from? Because we had a bunch of people. At one point.
Oh.
Ohio.
Yeah, see you. Hi, everywhere. We do want to say, though, there's 10 minutes left to enter into the gift card giveaway for this stream. So if you haven't yet, definitely jump in there because that is going to close at 12:30. So 9 minutes now to check that out. So.
When is the best time to start seeding your tank with copepods?
I think once it's up and running, you got a little Fillmore Brown, put them right in. You know, when you know that you don't have power issues, you know that your salinity and temperature are running okay. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. I did an internship at the Camden Aquarium and right in college, and one of the most important things that was drilled in every aquarist and every intern's head is to do daily testing of your temperature, and in aquariums we do dissolved oxygen. We don't really worry about that here because typically there's oxygen saturation with the filtration we have, but in a big public system it can go down quickly and you lose your whole tank. But temperature is something I find can vary and slowly, you know, shoot upwards or down. So you got to be very mindful that your temperature in May might not be the same as your temperature in August. So testing your temperature every day or spotting a heater that's malfunctioning, you know, even in a commercial setting, we find sometimes our temperature starts to drift up to 80, 81, 82, and no one's testing temperature because why temperature? I mean, everything's stable.
Yeah.
So test that. But to get back to that question, I think once your tank is set up, start putting copepods in there.
Bring me to something we talked about yesterday. What would you say is the number one piece of equipment that has a failure rate or will fail on your aquarium? I want to see if we get the same answer.
Probably a heater.
There we go.
Yeah, probably a heater.
We had that conversation yesterday.
Get a good
I think
heater.
it always comes down to the heater.
And have a backup. Yeah.
Having some kind of controller that can shut it down or something like that.
Yes, a redundant
heaters.
controller for it, yes.
Yeah.
Seems to be the general consensus everyone I talk to.
It's also the most catastrophic usually because if it fails in the on position, you know, you'll cook your tank.
Or shocks you and takes you down.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one thing the industry needs to work on. We need some sort of better heating solution.
Yeah.
Are clownfish a good choice for a beginner saltwater tank?
Yes, they are, absolutely. Get tank raised clowns. They're acclimated to live in captivity. They don't come in with Brooklynella and other diseases that plague wild ones. Leave the wild ones on the reef. There's really no reason to bring in wild.
There's so many companies that are aquaculture, and you get every pattern, every type you could ever want. Like, the wild ones shouldn't really even be a thing anymore with as accessible as they are.
They're in the damselfish family, right? Clownfish, so they're very hardy. I mean, no fish is going to want to be subjected to high ammonia and high nitrite, but you know, we've cycled plenty of tanks with clownfish. Just, you know, monitor that water, do water changes, keep those levels from getting too high, and clownfish are great.
Excellent. Refugeium or algae scrubber?
I haven't had that question.
Yeah.
Okay. I have done a lot with refugiums. I've only done a little bit with algae scrubbers, although a lot of people employ them with great success. What I like about a refugium is the ability for that to become another ecosystem to balance your aquarium. So having good background with the Triton method, we employ large algae filters. In fact, the filter is so big that it oftentimes puts pressure on the aquarium to feed it. So what happens is your nitrate and your phosphates become very low naturally, and you can feed your aquarium to raise those levels. You don't have to rely on GFO and carbon and water changes so much. So it's like you've got this constant break. It's like driving a car, and then you can control the gas with the food. So you want a little bit more nutrients, just feed a little bit more. You want to pull back the nutrients, feed a little bit less. And it's a kind of a different way of running an aquarium, a very natural approach. Plus you get this phytoremediation, which takes in a lot of toxic compounds. It pulls some of the trace elements that have a tendency to accumulate in the aquarium, so it can bind toxic substances. And the bacteria, you know, when your waste goes into a refugium, it kind of gets stuck there. It gets broken down, bacteria can consume it and jump on it, and then that works its way back up to the aquarium where the corals can feed on it. They love to eat bacteria and organic matter that's been coated in bacteria. So it just adds a very natural component to our aquariums. It's not always practical to do it. Sometimes they go sideways, you know, they get that red slime on the top. It's not a properly designed unit. And then the last thing on that is it also helps to elevate your pH by maintaining higher oxygen levels. You know, as the algae is taking in carbon dioxide, the algae is submerged, so it's directly taking in CO2 and adding oxygen to raise the pH. In an algae scrubber, that algae is outside the aquarium, so you don't get that buffering capacity.
that's a good
And it's
point.
usually just Derbatia or microfilm algae, so while it is consuming nitrates, it's not adding as much to the aquarium. It's more just like a tool to filter water. Whereas with the Refugeium, you're getting a lot of the benefits of a complex ecosystem married to your display aquarium.
Nice.
With the Refugeium, do you always suggest it be on when the tank lights are off, so you keep that pH balance, or do you do
Yeah,
24/7, just
No,
opposite schedule?
so I think we've moved past, there is literature where people like to run 24, but it's very unnatural. So I would do a reverse photo period so that you do stabilize the pH that way. And algae needs a dark phase as well. So, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, just run opposite and you'll be good.
Learned a little bit about Refugeiums right here.
Yeah.
it was good.
Very
We should
nice.
have a whole conversation on Refugeium benefits. I think we could have a good one.
Yeah.
I'm new to the hobby. I started out with a Coraline BioCube 14 about 8 months ago. I was curious to know what you recommend, an all-in-one or a sump with Refugeium?
Okay.
I guess it's like an upgrade or something?
Yeah. I mean, the all-in-ones are great, right? Because you don't have the plumbing, you don't have bulkheads that could possibly leak, even though they don't if it's properly set up and you have a nice stable floor. The downside to an all-in-one is you do lose some of that footprint to a filter that you could possibly have more in your display aquarium. So using the base underneath to put that filter in gives you more gallons to enjoy your aquarium. So that's really the only trade-off. What I like about the all-in-one is it's typically more efficient, uses less energy, the pumps are smaller. You are limited to what you can put in there. Typically you can't do a Refugeium, you can't start adding skimmers or heaters, you're very confined to that. So it is limiting to the, to add stuff to it. But if you're not gonna overthink it, it's 14 gallons or something like that, the all-in-one's the way to go.
Okay.
Yep.
They're simple. Very easy.
Simple and easy.
If you're going to go
And they don't
complex
overflow
corals and
usually.
stuff, then go sump,
Yeah.
you're going to need more equipment. But
Right. Yeah.
I'm setting up a new reefer. When is the right time to get the skimmer going? Or I guess reef.
Yeah. Skimmer is another tool, right? So it will add some oxygen to the water, but not as much as people think. I mean, it's really confined within that space. So if we're not looking at the benefits from oxygenating your water, we're looking at the benefits of removing waste. In the beginning, you're trying to cycle your aquarium. So you need that waste to aid your cycle. You need your bacteria to develop colonies quickly and strongly. So by pulling waste out, you're kind of hitting the brakes on that process. So I like to leave the skimmer off for the first month or so, let the tank really mature. If you see unwanted algae really starting to take hold, then you can run that skimmer to help with that. But run your lights low in the beginning, and there's different theories on this is just mine. Some of the best tanks I did, if I'm doing mostly dry rock, I'll leave the lights off for a month and let a nice biofilm grow on it. Leave the skimmer off, let it kind of establish itself naturally. Because if you start hitting it with high lights right away, you're going to get unwanted algae.
Yeah.
Then you're just battling from the
And
beginning.
inoculate your system with bacteria. Cultures that are either manufactured in a bottle or grunge from someone's aquarium, or get live rock. Like we sell live rock now through Mariculture Live Rock at Marco Rocks. You can add to your aquarium. Any of those ways to get that system going with a natural biome. Very important.
Nice.
That cycling part is just so important.
Yes.
Are seahorses good for beginners? Let's ask Ivan. Ivan loves seahorses.
I haven't watched Seahorse bad.
What does ChatGPT say? They're not that hard to keep, especially if you're getting tank-raised ones. There's a number of companies now that offer tank-raised ones. I would stay away from wild ones, but they'll eat frozen brine shrimp or fortified brine shrimp. I would say that they're a little bit more challenging for beginners, but they're not hard enough where I would say it's cruel for a beginner to try it. And let's be honest, you don't want to say everyone's a beginner and has the same abilities. I mean, some beginners are just not good at keeping animals and some are really good. Yeah. So do your research and seahorses are not that hard to keep.
Yeah, I think it's with seahorses is like know that you're very limited on what you can do with the aquarium and them, and like know that this is all
It's
you're
just
really gonna
seahorse,
get.
maybe a pipefish, yeah.
Right, that's it. So like just knowing that from the beginning and setting it up properly for those animals, I think is where a lot of people go wrong with seahorses.
But wasn't there a bunch of fish wasn't there a seahorse in Nemo? Wasn't there? And there was a bunch of fish, or was
Yeah,
I
I
my
mean,
mistake?
Nemo's real. Like everything's right.
Right. No, you're absolutely correct. You even put a damsel in there, and those seahorses will be like, whoa,
Yeah.
I give up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
It goes back to that research part. Know what you're doing.
And you can do really cool stuff with seahorses. Some intertidal stuff with algae and little hermit crabs and maybe a little horseshoe crab, pipefish.
Yeah, I forget which event it was that we did, one of these live events, but one of it was the owner highlight, and it was a seahorse aquarium. It was like a 90-gallon. It had 10 seahorses and just all the perfect kind of gorgonians and like types of corals, and it was really just designed for them, and it was a stunning aquarium. Like it was really awesome. So you can do it and have a lot of cool stuff, just very particular what it can be.
Just ordered our Marine X 110.4 last night. Found myself looking for a tracking number this morning. So excited. Congratulations, Brian.
That is a good model.
Yeah.
Very popular. You'll love it.
Any questions? Alrighty.
I remember getting my first aquariums. I remember the smell of the salt after you mix it, and you know those little mist bubbles percolating out. It was like a perfume or something, and sometimes I'll be mixing salt and I'll smell that, and it just takes me back to being 14, 15 years old.
What was your first saltwater aquarium? How big and what did you have in it?
It was actually a 100-gallon tank.
You started with 100?
It was my 100-gallon freshwater that I converted to saltwater. Yeah, and I had bleached coral in it. I remember getting a giant piece of blue ridge coral up in Cape Cod on a family trip. It was $100, coincidentally, for a 100-gallon tank for that coral. And I had to chip away at it because it barely fit the tank. But it was so cool to see fish swimming out, in and out of that, like naturally, and it just
So you
amazing
started with
experience.
fish only?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to start going over into corals and having a reef tank?
Then I did a 20-gallon fish only with an undergravel filter, homemade light. I have pictures of it. Homemade filter with a Super King hang on. You know, those J tubes they'd suck the air out of, going way back. And I had success with that. I had the Philips 03 bulb, Triton bulb. You know, these are all 20-watt bulbs, so you tried to fit 4 of them on like a 20-gallon tank, and you had 80 watts. I mean, you were cranking.
Yeah.
But yeah, the corals did pretty well. Not SPS though. We weren't testing calcium and didn't know about alkalinity.
I remember my first saltwater aquarium, 20-some odd years ago, whatever. It was like one of those tall, like 15s with the bi-wheel built into the hood.
Oh, okay.
That was my very first one.
Yes, I remember
actually
those.
did really good, but it was all like soft corals and leathers. But like that was my very first, and I just remember that bi-wheel never moved properly.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was
just
a whole
like
black
super
top.
tall. Yeah, closed big black top, super tall, skinny aquarium with a little bi-wheel sitting on the top.
Sure.
And actually did good for a while.
Mine was a 120 gallon that I bought off eBay.
Fish only or
Fish
corals?
only or coral?
No, I did I jumped right in. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Okay. Yeah.
But I quickly learned.
Yeah. And then I got a halide. I set up a 120, 48, 24, 24, and I had a big wooden canopy. Took out all my actinic bulbs, and then I cut a hole in the top, and I got one of those big metal halide 400-watt lights and stuck it right on there. And I remember my dad coming out and be like, "You're gonna burn the house down." You know, the wood is like 200 degrees underneath the bulb. He's like, "You gotta cut it back more." I'm like, "But then it's gonna fall through." It's like,
That's funny, 'cause
I wrapped tin foil around the wood on the inside of it. Like, he's right. I'm probably gonna burn the house down.
Every tank had a wood canopy and then the hottest lights possible.
Yeah,
It just,
yeah.
I mean, I remember my 210 had a wood canopy on it, and I had 3 400-watt metal halides in there. I had like 7 fans across the back.
Yes.
And it was just like so hot and such a mess.
Yeah,
Well, that's been the change in our industry that we don't have to deal with now. LED lights, DC pumps, things that are highly efficient, that only put out a little bit of heat in the aquarium, that doesn't call for the need of a chiller. The chiller is really in a backup position, whereas for years it was a vital component. And when that chiller would fail, the tank within hours would go to 86, 88, and it was instant death. So the chiller was so critical. And I remember this transition in New York City where every reef tank got a chiller.
Yeah.
And then we started realizing that the chiller's not going on. And maybe because we have DC pumps and LED lights, that we don't even need to sell chillers to every application. With proper venting and cooling with just fans, The tank only hits 82, 83. And then we started making them optional. And then I remember doing a lot of nice builds where we didn't put chillers in.
Yeah.
So that's a real good thing. And companies like you that are offering high quality, high efficient products, it prevents the need for having to have a chiller.
Oh man, the chillers are so loud and put out so much heat around them.
Right. It's so.
We don't have those anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
I run one in my house, my slaughter system, and I hate it. Every time it kicks on, I'm like, oh, it's so loud.
Yep.
That's definitely the chiller industry. The chiller part of our industry did not like LED lights coming on.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Oh, I got another question here. I would like to ask, is Coraline algae really important?
That's a good question. I see Coraline algae as the canary in the coal mine to let us know that the tank is doing well enough for SPS corals to be hardy, to do well. People want Coraline algae because it's like, it's a sign that the aquarium is progressing to this point, because we see all these established beautiful aquariums with Coraline algae, but really once you get to run an aquarium for a while, you realize the Coraline algae is a pain, especially if you have an acrylic tank. Now you're scraping it off. It scratches the aquarium. It's consuming your minerals, from your mineral bank. Now you're spending good money on calcium and alkalinity supplements and magnesium, only to have 20% of it siphon off to your Coraline algae. So I think in the beginning, it's good because it does balance. Any living thing is going to balance that ecosystem. But then eventually, limiting the Coraline algae is great if you can, but you really can't.
Yeah, I was about to say, how did you say that? I was like, how can you do that?
No, you can't. Just buy more coral, and you don't have surface area for Coraline algae.
And just keep your aquarium
And get a
scrubbed so
robo
it can't
wiper that
grow
just keeps
up.
moving.
Yeah. Once you start seeing the spots of Coraline on the back, you're like, oh, I gotta go scrub now. And you are.
And it's always
take the
like, do I
razor.
keep it black, the back, or blue, or do I let it get purple? It's a decision you're all going to have to make.
Yes. And I've done both. And then at first you're like, oh, it'll be so cool, let's cover the Coraline. But then I personally, having a purple background doesn't show off the corals and everything else is better. Like keeping that black or solid background makes everything else pop so much. So, and you're a huge proponent of back glass always staying
it's gotta
clean.
Look, the glass has got to look new all around, all the time.
Well, at public aquariums, they cheat. They always have a piece of black acrylic that they just pop in the back. So they don't ever clean, you can't speak in absolutes, but typically they won't clean the back. They just pull this insert out and they have another one they drop in. So every few days it just comes out, they drop a new one. Ever notice they're all curved and perfectly clean? That's just a design for that aquarium.
Interesting.
That's makes so much sense. That'd be such a pain to go in there every few days and keep that back on those always clean.
Yeah, and they always pull, the front facade to cover the side and top and bottom. Well, you don't really need it for the top and bottom, but it covers the ends of it. So you purposely design your aquarium to be able to drop in this insert. I tried once in an aquarium and it was just a dripping mess. I'm like, this is not a public aquarium.
Yeah, no aquarium, just scrub the back.
Sorry, Mom.
I did not know that. It's pretty cool. That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
They're asking, what's the purpose of copepods?
To eat your diatom algae. They are really a vital component, and they will reproduce in your aquarium. So another thing I like to do is buy copepods, but don't put fish that are going to eat your copepods. Don't buy mandarins, pipefish, little 6-line wrasses. In fact, if you can be disciplined, just let the copepods and other little crustaceans run wild. Pretend it's before the dawn of man or fish. Just let them own the aquarium, and they'll multiply like crazy, and they will eat a lot of that waste.
They're a very good food source for the aquarium for fish and the corals and stuff like that too. So very natural thing if you can keep that population going, which is another great benefit of refugiums as well.
You'll see mysis shrimp, all over the place. Those little benthic little crustaceans are so important. And if you let them multiply, then when you do put a fish in that likes to eat them, there's a much longer food source for that fish.
Yeah.
Perfect. We're good on questions? You ready for winners? Yeah, we're ready.
All right.
I entered. Can I win? Am I allowed?
Yeah, let's see what happens. They might think that's rigged. All right, ready?
Let them know if this is completely randomly selected through the thing.
Yeah, this is randomly selected through the
We use a software called Viral Sweep.
Viral Sweep. So we have no idea who wins. They throw it up there. So.
Yep.
All right, ready?
Got some winners. That's our drum roll.
Oh.
Adrian Leffler and Joe Heffley.
Nice.
Good
Congratulations,
name,
you two.
Joe. That's,
Yeah.
That might be rigged because I'm Joe.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing
We
Do
just
you,
changed
is
the
that
last
your
name.
little side name right over there? And you'll get your gift card emailed over to you a little bit later today, so you don't have to email in or anything. So you will see that pop into your email inbox this afternoon. So keep an eye out for that. And congratulations. We do have one more giveaway you can do today, which will be on our 3 o'clock stream, which is when we'll be back. So make sure you jump on there and get entered in for another chance to win.
Thank you for joining us, Joe. We appreciate it as
So
always.
great to
lot of
talk
fun.
to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again, and we'll see you guys at 3 p.m.
See ya.